Hi, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. It's Friday. Who doesn't love Friday? And not only is it Friday on YWTV, but we're ending on an incredible high note this week. I mean, we've had a great week of shows, so many amazing conversations, and today is no different. And hopefully after today's conversation, we'll get all your weekend plans in order for you because we've got a lot of good options for you today. So grateful to have with us today my good friend, Executive Director of the Teaneck International Film Festival, Jeremy Lentz, and my new friend, who I'm so happy to meet today virtually, award-winning writer, producer, and director, Luchina Fisher. So I'd like to welcome them both to YWTV.
Great to be here. Good morning.
Good morning.
For our viewers, as you know, YWTV is all about educating and inspiring you. And today is about a wonderful ongoing gem that's in our community that we're just so grateful to bring today's story to you. The Teaneck International Film Festival is our Bergen County shining star. It's located obviously in Teaneck. It's been in its space here for 10 years. Over 3,000 filmgoers each year get to enjoy and be inspired by some really amazing imaginative feature-length films, documentaries, and shorts from a variety of cultures that encourage audiences to question, debate, and become caring and involved citizens who recognize the need to institute positive change. And I feel like each year when we talk about this, we think, oh, this is so needed this year. And I'm going to say it again this year. This is so needed this year. The films of the Teaneck International Film Festival are always focused around activism, making change, and offers an excellent starting point for fostering the appreciation of differences, understanding all that we share, and encouraging efforts for all of us to help make the world a better place and give us some headspace in terms of ways to get there. Our YWCA of Northern New Jersey has been a proud sponsor of this film festival since we honored Jeremy and the Teaneck International Film Festival at our Racial Justice Awards a few years back. And I remember watching the little montage that we did about the festival and Jeremy's work at our event, the full room of people there to honor him. And I was thinking to myself, why are we not part of this film festival? Why are we just honoring him? And we've never looked back. We've been a sponsor ever since, and we will continue to do so. This year, we're sponsoring two films, The Conductor Cam, which was shown last Saturday, and The Belly of the Beast, which debuts on Tuesday, November 24th at 7:30 p.m. And I encourage you to purchase tickets online, and we will have the links available for you, and they are already starting to appear, and the magic that YWTV creates in our comments, and they will be the information will be flashing on the screen for all of you. But not only should you watch that film, there's so many other great films, which we're going to talk about today. So before we launch into our discussion, I just want to tell you a little bit background about our guests. Jeremy Lentz, as I said, is the Executive Director of the Teaneck International Film Festival, and the festival is a project of the Puffin Foundation under Jeremy's leadership. TIFF, as we call it for short. TIFF is considered one of the most prominent social justice film festivals in our nation. Earlier this year, Jeremy was honored by the Bergen County Executive, the Bergen County, the Board of Chosen Freeholders, and the Bergen County African American Advisory Committee for Black History Month with the Business Contribution Award. In 2019, Lentz was the recipient of the first Community Partner Award presented by the Lynx of Bergen County. Lentz has also been named Teaneck's Man of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce, and I believe he won a Hometown Hero Award, which isn't in here, but I know that because I am a friend and fan from our congressman here in Bergen County. So, and that's always because he and the film festival always receive many accolades for promoting racial equity and social justice support. And then we have Luchina with us, who, as I mentioned, is an award-winning writer and producer and director. Her most recent film, the critically acclaimed feature documentary Birthright, A War Story, which she co-executive produced and co-wrote, appeared in more than 70 theaters nationwide, qualified for an Oscar consideration, and is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. She is the director of 2 short films and has written and produced several nationally broadcast documentaries, as well as numerous segments for television. Luchina began her career as a journalist and has written for People magazine, the Miami Herald, the New York Times, O, which is the Oprah magazine, and abcnews.com. She is a Sisters in Cinema documentary fellow and a Mama Gloria, and Mama Gloria is her feature directorial debut. So, wow, so much to say about all of you, but we're not stopping there. Let's get into it because there's so much to talk about. So, Luchina, I'm going to start with you. How did you end up bringing your film, Mama Gloria, to the festival? I would love to hear that story of that journey.
Oh, sure. I think, Jeremy, were you stalking me on Facebook?
Nothing wrong with that. I've been known to do that too. Nothing wrong with that.
Actually, so Birthright, which you mentioned earlier, was in the Teaneck International. I want to say, was it 2017 or 2018? Probably.
I think it was 2017, probably, right?
Probably, yes, because we launched that film in July of 2017. So I imagine it was that November. And so I knew of the Teaneck International Film Festival from the reception that Birthright received. I believe one of the congresswomen actually conducted the panel with Sivia Tamarkin, who was the director of Birthright and a very good friend of mine. She and I had collaborated on another film previously, like more than like 15 years ago, on the history of Title IX and women in sports. So definitely we both have this big bent towards social justice and social justice issues. So I knew of Teaneck, and then I think I saw, I feel like Jeremy reached out to me on Facebook. A lot of things happen on Facebook. And he had seen that I was raising money for Mama Gloria, that I was, and this was probably earlier in the year or end of last year. And I think the film had just been chosen for the Athena Film Festival's Works in Progress program. And so that took place in March. And after Jeremy reached out, I responded, and I think he said something about, this film sounds really interesting. I'd love to, know more about it and just keep in touch as you're, finishing up the film. I think he said if it's ready in November, if it's ready by the fall, we would love to consider it for Teaneck. And so when the Works in Progress program came up in March, I reached out to Jeremy and invited him to hear me pitch the project, along with other folks from the industry who were in the room. And this was actually one of the last events that took place before everything shut down in New York. So we were so fortunate to have this moment where we had a room filled with people who love film and are really committed to seeing independent filmmakers get their work out there. And I sat with Jeremy and I think your executive director, well, you're the executive director, but one of the other people from the festival. And it was just lovely to meet in person and make this connection after, knowing of each other for some years. and now here we are. We're coming to the Teaneck International with Mama Gloria, and it just seems like it's meant to be.
And that's this weekend is the big showcase of Mama Gloria, right?
That's absolutely true. We debut at Teaneck tomorrow at 7 p.m. and we will be screening the film and joined for the panel discussion with our good friend Sandy Klein. And actually, Jeremy, I think you introduced me to Sandy as well, right after Athena. Yeah, Sandy reached out. She said, Jeremy told me about you and your story, and I'd love to do an interview for Conversations with Creative Women. So she did an interview with me, and then later Mama Gloria. So Sandy already knows us well, and so we will be talking after the film tomorrow night, and we're going to be joined by Shia Diamond. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Shia Diamond is a singer-songwriter. She is also a Black trans woman and activist. And I'll tell you more about that later, but she actually wrote and sings our original song in the film. It's called Presence of a Legend, and it's a great story, but I'm just so excited that she is going to be joining us tomorrow night as well.
Wow. Well, that's so exciting. And, I hope everybody watching, we've got the link here. Go get your tickets. Because you're not going to want to miss it. But it's so interesting how, March, you're at this, high moment of your career. And then obviously the world transitioned. But, thank goodness you got that moment in, before it did. So Jeremy, the world transitioned in March, right? And so obviously that transition, here we are all these months later, who would have imagined it would still be impacting us the way it is, but it obviously has. But it didn't stop TIFF. So tell us a little bit about how you, I actually hate this word, but I know it's the word of the pandemic, how you did the pivot. I feel like it's the most overused word of the pandemic, but nonetheless, it does illustrate what so many of us have had to do. But how did you make the pivot, and how is it going? So exciting.
It's so fun to be here, Helen. Thank you for having me back. And I just have to say, in this life, it's like you're meant to meet or be connected to certain people, and somehow they become a part of your extended family. And, with that story, Luchina was just one of those people that, for whatever reason, her name just kept popping up. We did Birthright a couple of years ago, and Senate Majority Leader Loretta Weinberg spoke on that panel with Sivia, who was the filmmaker. And then it was like all of a sudden, this name kept on reappearing. Last year, we did this film called Little Miss Westie that also followed the story of two trans youth and kind of their story about a beauty pageant in Connecticut. And we were looking for speakers, and Luchina's name came up again. And I'm like, that name is so familiar. There aren't many Luchina Fishers. And, reached out, and sure enough, it was, the Luchina Fisher that we know. And then this winter, I'm reading a magazine. I think it was Out, Luchina. I think it was Out magazine. And they had like either queer films to watch out for in 2020. And it referenced something that Shia Diamond was doing the theme song for this film on Mama Gloria. So that name stuck out because we had done a documentary short that won an award at our festival called Miss Diamond, about Shia Diamond's life prior to becoming this now pop star. And I Googled on this film, and sure enough, what's the name that comes up as filmmaker? I'm like, you have to be kidding me. So that's when the stalking started. And I'm like, you talk about serendipity. I'm like, this is just meant to be. So we have to have you out here. Your story needs to be here. It's got to be told. And this is what we're doing. So it's like, nothing is going to stop us. We've been through hurricanes. We've been through, massive power outages. We've had our theater shut down. We've gotten it back open, restored it to digital. So it was just, look, this came up in March. We didn't know in March where we're going to be in November. But the one thing I said to my committee is just forge ahead. There are great films out there. We need to plan something. Whatever it is, we're doing something. I don't care. We have to do something. And now is not the time to not do something. We're going into an election year. We don't know what the state of affairs is going to be in November, and it's our obligation to our community. They've come to expect this. So we'll kind of navigate it, see how things go over the summer, and then we'll make a decision. And the decision was based on what we saw. The safe bet was going to be, we're going to go fully virtual. We had the opportunity. Our movie theater is actually open. And there was conversation about maybe doing smaller events at the theater, but we just felt with the uncertainty, it'd be the safest bet to just do a fully virtual platform this year. And it's worked to our advantage. Again, the serendipity. We started this partnership with PBS and Independent Lentz this past year. And when the pandemic hit, they pivoted over to this virtual platform. So the winter doc series that we were partnering with them on went on to this platform called Ovi, which is effectively the virtual cinema that our festival is being hosted on. And we were able to integrate that into our festival, where we're streaming films live and our talkbacks are live. And I think what the amazing thing, unlike a lot of other festivals that are just sending out links to watch films, and they're not experiencing an actual synchronistic live community event. The amazing thing about our festival is the fact that everyone is logging into this cinema at the same time, and they are experiencing the emotions together. So even though you're at home, you still have this strong sense of being a part of something, and people are able to comment and talk about whatever their emotions are while the film is going on, and their little emoji buttons where they can cry, they can clap if they choose to use that. And then immediately following the film, there are no external links. They stay in this virtual theater. And then the talkback is live streamed right into the theater, and they have the ability to utilize the chat where the moderator can ask the question. So we've just been so fortunate. We didn't know how we were going to pull it off. And I just have to say, we have the most incredible production team. Karen Sachs, Jason Koistra were able to get everything over onto our virtual platform. And then, our social media team and PR, and everyone's just come together and risen to the occasion. So it's been great. And our audiences have been larger and bigger than ever before. So we had no idea what to expect, but the feedback has been tremendous, Helen.
Well, I'm not surprised, because you do have such a following to begin with. And, this, as sad and as tragic as so much of this time has been, I think, we are still all looking for community, and we still are looking for connectedness in some way. And, having opportunities like TIFF really does create that, because it gives us just enough of a distraction, from, current life, but at the same time keeps us very plugged into the realities of our current existence. And allows us to, individually educate and activate, from what, what you're presenting. So it's a real testament to your team, what you've been able to pull off. And I know that it was no small effort, but I'm not surprised and very happy to hear that it's booming, and that it's been a good shift. And it'll be interesting to see, I guess, for all of us, right, what of this time we keep when we evolve back. what pops into your head quickly from just these, partway into the festival, Jeremy? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, I think, this will be some kind of mainstay. I'm sure, we'll have some type of hybrid component to our festival because number one, these films are too important to not be shared by wider audiences. So people aren't limited by geography or the cost of a plane ticket or the cost of admission, where to have the ability to have anyone globally log in and see this film and engage in it and learn about what they can do if they feel inspired to have that call to action to go out in their community and raise awareness on an issue. I think for a festival like ours with a mission of social justice, it's critical. So I think that, there'll be a lot of takeaways from this virtual world that will benefit us. And, there's a silver lining in everything. And I think, that's how you kind of have to approach life. You get through the difficult parts, but you learn, and hopefully there's positive things that you can take away from that.
I couldn't agree more. So Luchina, question for you. I mean, this has been a time since March that we've lived in that really has put a spotlight on systemic racism. And, obviously it came into full view with the George Floyd murder a few months ago. But I think also, obviously, we know that it's put the spotlight on the systemic racism in our education system. It's put a spotlight on systemic racism in our healthcare system, in our medical approaches, in so many places. So I'm thinking about your industry. I'm thinking about your industry in terms of film. We did a town hall a few months ago on systemic racism, and we had Twinkie Bird on, and she spoke about systemic racism in the film industry. And I'm just curious what your experiences have been to share.
Right. I mean, it's fascinating because, as Jeremy said, there's a silver lining in everything. And I know for me, I have been making films mostly on the side while I was a journalist for 20 years or more. And originally I did it on the side because I didn't think that Hollywood was a place for me. I didn't believe that, I didn't see any role models. There were very few Black women who were directing in the 90s when I started. Julie Dash, stands out as one of them, but there were very few. And so I just didn't think that was a place for me, that I could actually get traction and make films. So I just did everything on the side. I came to New York around the 2000s. I did some television documentaries, and to bring that word back, pivot. I pivoted from, writing because I was also a ghostwriter. So I had written Gladys Knight's book, and lived and traveled with her. And so when I had the opportunity to produce in New York, I went to Gladys and said, "What do you think about me doing an A&E biography on you?" And she's like, "I love that show. Let's do it." So that's how I got into producing and really making my first hour of television. And then Civi and I partnered together on a doc and so on. So I kind of like made my own way, my own path. And then after having children, I went back to writing, but I still saw things visually. I still had this urge to create visual projects, and so I did a couple of short films, raising the money myself by crowdfunding, and those got attention, got some awards at festivals, nominated for best film or best short at at Pan-African Film Festival. And again, I kind of gave myself the green light as opposed to waiting for Hollywood to do that. And around this time, a woman named Eva Duvernay came along. And I had actually met Eva previously. I had interviewed her for ABC News when she was famous for doing her Oscar parties. And this was before she got into making film herself. And then she came out with her film Middle of Nowhere, which won the Sundance Jury Prize that year. And then her career just blew up, just took off. And we had the chance to sit down and have dinner with a group of other Black women, a lot of us creatives, and she remembered me because of the name Jeremy. I don't know. There's no other Luchina Fisher out there. But we hadn't met in person. But I loved that she too was giving herself the green light, that she had funded her own films independently. And even after she won the jury prize at Sundance, it took a moment before anybody hired her. That was the state of Hollywood at that time, that as a Black female, if that had been a white guy, right, we'd seen it previously, they got like a huge budget feature out of winning the Sundance Jury Prize. I think Eva ended up directing a documentary on Venus and Serena after that. And then somehow she got connected to Selma, and then she was off to the races. So things have definitely changed and shifted. But I have to say that this moment that we're in, this reckoning, has come to the industry. There is just no doubt. The industry is not only paying attention, but they are actively shifting. They are actively changing. And I feel it because I am getting emails and calls like every other week, which is incredible. That after so many years of sort of working on my own, and not knowing whether anybody's really paying attention, I'm suddenly getting phone calls, and people are reaching out about having me come aboard projects as a director, as a producer, and I also have to say that there feels like support among us Black female filmmakers. There's a very powerful group that I belong to called Brown Girl Doc Mafia. You gotta love that name, right? We are tough. We are 4,000 strong, women of color, documentary filmmakers. And through that group alone, I have had so many requests and people reaching out. So I do see that the industry's changing. I see we have this opening. Of course, we all do wonder what's going to happen when things sort of go back to whatever is the normal. But I feel that with this window open, there's no turning back. I really don't think that the Black female creatives who are now getting these opportunities are going to allow it to go back. I think we're moving in the right direction finally.
Well, that's
that.
encouraging. Very, very encouraging, and so glad that you got the support to bring Mama Gloria to the screen. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about this story and this film. Obviously our work at the YW makes us very aware of how marginalized the transgender community is. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the film.
Absolutely. So Mama Gloria is about Gloria Allen, who is a 75-year-old trailblazing transgender elder and activist from Chicago. And she started a charm school for homeless trans youth when she was in her 60s. So Gloria is one of these people who believes that every day you should live fully and with gratitude and give back at every opportunity that you can. And right now she's aging with joy and grace and enjoying this moment in the spotlight. The film really tells her story, which is remarkable. She grew up in the 40s and 50s, came out of the drag ball scene in Chicago, which not a lot of people know about. But we were fortunate to get some amazing photographs of some of the drag ball performers of that time and from the 50s. And that scene really dates back to the 20s and 30s, and it was very prominent in the Black community on the south side of Chicago. She also had an amazing mother and grandmother. Her mother was a jet model centerfold. She was gorgeous. And we got amazing outtakes of her posing for Jet magazine that Gloria herself had never seen before. So the film has all this rich history. And then Gloria was able to transition 4 years before Stonewall. So she really has a story that not many people have heard, and we think of this moment of transgender visibility as being one for young people, like my daughter who identifies as trans, or young adults. But it really is the elders like Gloria who paved the way for this moment, and we really have to preserve their stories for not only my daughter but her generation, because I feel Gloria is the connection for her to her past, but also to her future. I think it's really important. Here we are on Transgender Day of Remembrance, where we honor those whose lives have been lost. And this has been a particularly deadly year for Black trans women, especially. So I think it's very important to remember that we do have these elders who have lived long lives, who are still with us, so that we can see and imagine what it's like to have a long, meaningful life like Gloria's. I really feel that that's an important element of the story that I hope comes across.
Well, what a gift that you've given all of us with this film, and to your daughter, as well. Jeremy, question for you. As you know, the YWCA supported the Conductor Cam, which was I'll let you talk about it. It was kind of an interesting, medium that kind of popped in, and we were very interested in supporting it because, as you know, our organization has made a commitment to share the mic now, and every Thursday we share our YWTV platform with Black women in our community to elevate their voices and to pass the baton, as well. So I love for you to talk a little bit about, this kind of medium that kind of popped up, and kind of this unique piece that's in the festival this year. I know it happened already, but I still would love for you to talk about it.
Yeah, no, and it's a great question because I think it ties into so much of what Luchina was just talking about. For those of you who don't know, Conductor Cam is a short, and it was done by Rob McClure, who's a big Broadway guy. He, prior to the shutdown, was playing Mrs. Doubtfire in the Broadway musical Mrs. Doubtfire, and has done so much on stage. on and off the stage. So we saw this short, and it starts off, it's black and white, and he's conducting, and then all of a sudden the music that you hear stops, and everything goes silent, and then he passes his baton to a Black woman, and she starts conducting. And then all of a sudden, we see all the folks from Ragtime come into this story, and they start singing Wheels of a Dream. So you have Audra McDonald and Brian Stokes Mitchell. And the short really is about passing the baton. And the woman in this doc is actually a teacher, I believe, and references what she does. And it just was something that was so beautiful. And it came about right at the time of Black Lives Matter, where just, everyone kind of felt like we were being suffocated in so many ways. And to see art, or artivism, as they're calling it, something that is 2 minutes, but has such a powerful impact in integrating a story and talking about giving everyone a seat at the table. Because I think in what Luchina did, and this gift that she gave to her daughter, myself as a gay man growing up in the 90s and coming of age at that point, there really were no role models. And that was always something that was lacking. There was never anyone who I could kind of feel, well, I could look up to that person, or there was someone that I could go to. And so much of that is simply about representation. The people are out there, the stories are out there, they're just not being told. And everybody needs to have a seat at the table. And I think, that short just encapsulated that about passing the baton. So it just, fit in. And we wrote to Rob and said, we want to include this in our film festival. And, I don't think that was the intent for why he created it, but it was so beautiful. We said, we have to show this. It needs a cinematic audience.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I was obviously very taken with it myself, which is why I, felt strongly about us, supporting showing it. But I also, I thought it was so interesting too. And I'm not quite as entrenched in the film world as both of you are. So I'm, more of an outsider who is one who just enjoys and gets educated by film. But I thought it was an interesting medium, and, the way that it was, and although it was so short and it was something floating around social media the way it was in terms of, this Instagram short, it was so poignant.
Mm-hmm.
And so impactful. And I was very impressed with it. So as we wind down, and this is like not a question to wind down with, but I guess we'll wind down with it, is let's talk about Belly of the Beast. I mean, I know that is, coming on the 24th, and obviously it's one of the films that the YWCA of Northern New Jersey chose to stand with. And, obviously for us, the medical racism, the systemic racism, the reproductive justice issues. I mean, there's so many layers of stories within one film there. Can you talk a little bit about, this film and how, your feelings and wishes for bringing it to TIFF, Jeremy?
Yeah. Again, I think there's so many stories that are so critical about what's going on in our country that are underreported. And I think this issue of what's going on, not only in women's prisons throughout the US, but also we're hearing these reports in these immigration detention centers of forced sterilizations. And you read this stuff and you think, what science fiction movie am I watching? This is the United States of America. What the hell is going on here? And finally, you're reading small stories in the paper on this. They're not page one stories. They're like in the back. And this film came to us through our partnership with Independent Lens. It's an indie Lens film. And we just immediately felt this is an important story. And in programming, a lot of times when you do a social justice festival, you want to try to balance out your roster. You don't want to always have topics that are, so kind of emotionally heart-wrenching, and you want to also be able to find stories that will also engage people in a way of uplifting them and such. But this particular story was like, no, this has to be talked about. It's underreported. People need to know what is going on. And what's been interesting is when we announced this film and added it to the roster, it was like immediately all these groups started reaching out to us, from you with the YWCA to the National Council of Jewish Women to the National Coalition of 100 Black Women to Senator Weinberg, who's going to be speaking on it, who's the Senate Majority Leader, who has done so much in our state, who has legislation already in progress to bring to statewide level and hopefully expand that to national level. So we just see this ripple effect, and I think people want to know about these stories. So just to be able to provide that platform is great, and that's what it's about. That's why we do the work that we do.
I think the variety of women's organizations that rallied quickly to stand by this film, I think, says it all for sure. Yeah. And it's important to sit in the discomfort of it. It's important to watch it and sit in that space with it, because it is something that we as a country should be joining together to stop, all of us. It is appalling. Well, I thank you both for all of your shares today. I mean, this was such a great conversation. I feel like we could keep going and keep talking, but I know you will tomorrow night.
Yes.
And I know we will on Tuesday night, because there is so much more to talk about these films, about the film festival, about the impact that collectively and individually you are both having on, making this world a better place and a more thoughtful, creating a more thoughtful civilization, and grateful to you both for the work that you are doing to make that happen. And so proud to stand with you in the small way that we are, but so proud to get to be part of it, and always happy to sit, whether it's in the theater or on the couch, and support for sure. So folks, so much for you to get involved with. We have the links, as I said, in our comments, and you can learn more about Luchina and Jeremy and their work. We've been including ways that you can connect with them on social media and on their websites as well. And I encourage you to do that too. It's not just about the film festival right now. This is about going forward as well. There's so much and so many ways that you can participate and get involved. So, and again, there's still plenty of great films, and you can still grab all your tickets. So please do that. And I also just want to share, for anyone who has not signed up for our 21-day challenge for racial equity and social justice, please do so. We'll put the links here as well. We have over 600 people in our community that have taken the challenge right now. We are very committed to creating a team of social justice warriors, and we want everyone to spend some time focusing and learning about race, power, and privilege. And it's a wonderful opportunity to do it quietly and introspectively. Read, watch a little short, listen to a podcast, read an article, and learn and unlearn everything needed so that we can all stand together. So please do that. If you like what you see on YWTV, please consider supporting our work. You can do that by texting equality to 707070 or going to our website at ywcanj.org. We are so grateful for our viewers. We are so grateful for these two wonderful people that they are in the world. And we wish everyone a fabulous, safe weekend, and also upcoming a safe and small Thanksgiving. Use technology to stay connected this year, so that next year we can all be together safely. So keep masked, plug in your laptop, charge it up, and cook something good and enjoy your family and friends. Be well, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Bye-bye.